I've always been a bit of a collector. So when I was a very young kid, I used to collect fossils and shells and things like this. And then I went to college and discovered photography. And
Mm.
slowly but surely, I've started to build up the collecting gene. And I guess around the late 80s, this really started to get bigger. And I started at first to buy lots of books, and then got very excited by that. And then more later, as I had some money spare, and I was able to invest in prints as well. And now we see the culmination of this collecting habit in this exhibition. So when I was at Manchester Polytechnic, a guy called Bill Jay came around one day and gave a talk about British photographers, contemporary ones, and included in this was images of Tony Ray Jones, who none of us had seen before. And all of us found that we hit a chord with these images. And I think he showed what was possible to go out and photograph in Britain and come back with amazing pictures. Yes, I've actually got Tony Ray Jones Light Meter, which was given to me by Anna Ray Jones, his widow, who I've kept in touch with.
Oh,
And as
good.
well as that, I've got a copy of Album magazine, which he dedicated to her, where his folio was published in the early 70s. And to our knowledge, it's the only time he ever signed a book or a magazine, because his book came out after he died. So this is quite a unique and very
Uh,
cherished item. I think documentary's changed in many ways in this 50-year period that I've been an active photographer. So first off, it was all in black and white. And then in the 80s, we started to see color. So I have people like Peter Mitchell and more recently, people like Clementine Schneiderman. And also, I think the boundaries of documentary have somewhat loosened, whereby originally it was more to do with just social concerns, and the description of documentary has really evolved and expanded. And I think we reflect this very well in the exhibition. Well, when I went to college back in 1970, in those days, there was no photography's galleries at all. The photographer's gallery and the impressions opened a bit later. And so the idea then was that you would train to become an assistant and then eventually a photographer in your own right. My main teaching, I think, was at Farnham, West Surrey College of Art Design. And during that period of the early 80s and mid 80s, a whole generation of color photographers emerged. People like Anna Fox, Paul Seawright, Ken Grant in black and white. And these, if you like, started to revive and give real energy and direction to British documentary photography. So it was a very good moment to be teaching. And I always look back at that time, and indeed the alumni from the West Surrey College of Art Design, who've all gone on to have great careers themselves as photographers. It's always exciting to find new photographers. So, for example, I think 18 months ago, we put on Ian Weldon, who was a wedding photographer, who no one was
Yes.
taking very seriously. And we had this amazing opportunity to, first I met him, I saw his work, and then he'd never had a show at all in a photography gallery whatsoever. So it was great to give him the chance to show his work. We got fantastic publicity. So
Mm.
this is the kind of thing that we can do at the foundation. We can consolidate careers that, if you like, had somewhat faded and show their work in a new perspective, but also bring onto the platform that we provide new photographers and emerging ones that have never had a show before. I think there's always an element of voyeurism in photography. It's silly, really, to even pretend that it doesn't exist. But I think there's a responsibility that comes with that. So, in terms of my own pictures, I will take them first and then decide whether I can use them. I mean, I'm not particularly interested in going around upsetting people. Inevitably, you do come across people who don't want to be photographed, and they usually let themselves know, and I just don't photograph them. So, I
Yeah.
think you have to do it with integrity and intuition, and generally speaking, you know, the relationships you have with people that you photograph are good ones. So, you know, we mustn't get the impression that it's a negative process going around being a photographer. in the exhibition, you'll find different examples of photographers that have really engaged with the people that they photograph. Not all the time do people actually have to meet people or get on with people to photograph them, but very often, why wouldn't you do that? Because it's always great to hear what people have got to say. And whenever I do an official portrait, I'll always try and do that. I think it's an important aspect of what we do. But at the same time, I'm not saying you shouldn't ever do candid or photos just taken on the sly. I think both are appropriate. Both have their times when it's the right thing to do. And it's up to you as a photographer to work out the way forward and to adapt the right approach. I think documenting conflict is also an important aspect of contemporary photography. So there's a very good photographer, Gilles Perez, he's French, who's done extensive work in Northern Ireland. Yeah. And then more recently, after that, we have Poga Caesar with his very intimate, fantastic portrayal of the Handsworth riots last summer when the statue of Colston was thrown into the harbour, which we all know about. And Colin Moody took a great picture here. So I think these are an important aspect, you know, so we show everything. We show domestic life, we show conflict, and we show work situations, and of course leisure situations. I think you know, this is a real snapshot of what life has been like in Britain in the last 50 years. If you look at the exhibition, there are many street pictures. We have Shirley Baker in Manchester, we have Roger Main in London, we have Paul Trevor up in Liverpool, and they photograph kids playing on the street. This is something that A, doesn't really happen so much now, and B, it would be a lot more difficult to actually photograph, because photographing kids, unlike say 30, 40 years ago, wasn't an issue at all, is now much more problematic. All these kids these days are on their screens and they're not actually out in the street playing. So it does show you a time when people had more freedom, there's more innocence, there wasn't the issues wrapped up with photographing children. So it really is interesting to see how the times have changed and our approaches have changed towards this basic idea. I mean, in the exhibition, there are two types of photos. The ones that are staged or posed, like, say, Daniel Meadows and John Hind, who was working in Butlins and photographing these super stage pictures. And then the other pictures really are just sort of things that have been caught. And the thing is with these pictures, it makes it look so easy, but I know, you know, how difficult it is to achieve these brilliant pictures in this collection, because taking a good photo, having been a photographer myself for all these years, is not an easy task. And you can never actually tell anyone how to go about doing it, but it just so happens that we've collected people who have that natural gift, and that's part of what you see in this exhibition. So we also have in the exhibition a couple of pictures from Chloe Dowie Matthews, who's done a 5-year study of the River Thames, looking at the different events, looking at the different reactions along the river. And she spent 5 years researching, finding, locating these. And I think the fact that she's gone into this so seriously really shows when you see the full exhibition, but even in the two prints in this show. And in her captions, she's detailed when they were taken, the time of day, what the tide was like. It's a real sort of forensic look at these different events that she's unearthed along the River Thames. So many of the photographers in the show actually have Instagram platforms where they show their work, from Chloe down to the estate of Chris Killett, Ken Grant, of course. I think everyone here has probably got some kind of following. And this is a great way of you know, looking at photographers, looking at serious photographers, seeing what they do. And I think the reason why, you know, Instagram is such a popular platform these days is because everyone's a photographer now, so we want to see, if you take photography at all seriously, what people have achieved. And looking at a photographer's you know, Instagram lead gives you a very good demonstration of this. And people like someone like David Hearn, who's the most articulate expresser of his ideas and his relationship to photography through his Instagram thread, are very important people to follow, and you can learn a lot from these. and it's just out there, ready to be taken. So at the Martin Parr Foundation, as well as the fantastic print collection we also have an amazing library, and we have a bookshop. So if anyone's interested, either come up and see the gallery, which will now be open, or indeed have a look at our online bookshop, which is on the Martin Parr Foundation site. And there you'll find over 100 books, carefully selected by us as to show the ones that we think are very important, often signed by the photographers, which you can't get on Amazon. So we invite you to come along, perhaps even join the foundation, and then you get extra benefits like the ability to come and research in the library. You're invited to special members events. So please come and use us.